So here's a great question from a member of our community. Does Dr. Brewer have macronutrient values he recommends? For example, percent carbs, percent proteins, percent fats. Aside from that one guideline of maybe 100 glycemic carb grams. The next comment was, Dr. Brewer also made a comment that we're not talking about heavily fat-laden keto diet so much as just controlling glycemic carbs. The question and comment is, well, that's really non-specific and it's open to interpretation. So first, let me just make the comment. Yes, a lot of my statements do sound non-specific and open to interpretation. But when you get a little bit deeper, there are some other issues. It gets to one of the basics of problem solving. First, understand the situation. So for example, one of the things that I say is that you have to know if your body can metabolize carbs. Or are you insulin resistant? If you have insulin resistance, your body's not metabolizing carbs in a healthy way. Here's another thing to understand. Some people have very little insulin resistance. Others have very serious diabetes, and there's a whole range, a spectrum in between. Now you need to know what level of insulin resistance you have. Another concern is, well, how many people have this? We used to think that a third of people age 60 and older. That is way, way low. More recent evidence indicates half of us age 30 and older cannot metabolize carbs in a healthy way. So be very concerned about knowing first what your body can and cannot do. One level of carbs that's acceptable for one person is not acceptable for another. Now here's another component, and it's a little bit subjective, and that is, okay, I may feel comfortable saying, yep, I'll spend a couple hours a day at a blood sugar level of 140 or 150. Whereas another person may say, that's way too much. I don't want to go there. And other people may say, you know what, I'll accept a much higher level. So again, you have to assess the situation. Here's another thing to think about. What about proteins and fats? Well, with proteins, there are also some very specific body issues that you need to know about, and that has to do with your kidney function. If you have kidney failure, proteins can be very dangerous. So kidney failure, like insulin resistance, comes in a very, very broad spectrum. Some people may have like what we call a class 1 or class 2 or stage 1 or stage 2 kidney failure, but it really not be a significant issue. You need to assess the situation. You need to know your kidney function. In addition, there are also some subjective concerns around protein as well. Here's an example. Some people are working on their diet, want to decrease their hunger, and find that protein helps decrease their appetite. Again, you need to know that before you make your assessment on how many proteins you get in your diet. Now, what about fats? Well, one of the key things about fats has to do with, filling in those calories. Another key thing has to do with source of fats. Let's talk about source of fats first. Definitely fats like avocado oil, olive oil, for the most part tend to be healthy. Seed oils, not so much. There's been huge debate about using animal products as a source of fats, triglycerides. More recent data indicates that the concern about animal fats being unhealthy is not a valid one. And we're talking high level, very good, high quality data. Meta-analyses reviewed and published in JACC, the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. If you have more interest in that, the book Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz might help there. I mentioned there's a couple of things about fats though. The first one was filling in those calories. The second one was the source. We just talked about source, but let's talk about the other piece, filling in those calories. Most of us think, unfortunately these days, a BMI of 25 and above is healthy. That's not the case. For cardiovascular health, our BMI needs to be in the low 20s. Yes, there's the Schwarzenegger effect. Some people have a lot of muscle and that's healthy. Let me give you a quick gauge on that. Arnold Schwarzenegger had a BMI of 30 at one point when he had a very, very low fat mass. In fact, at the time that he won Mr. Olympia. So here's the thing, use that as a gauge. If you have a BMI of 30 and you think really it's all fat, then maybe you should look like Arnold when he won Mr. Olympia. So hopefully that gives you some perspective here. Our culture has gotten to where much more comfortable with heavy, fat-laden body composition, and you need to rethink that. So let's get back to the question. Dr. Brewer, your statements about carbs, percent fats, percent proteins are non-specific and can be interpreted, open to interpretation. The answer is yes, I agree, but you gotta understand the situation before you get deeper in terms of these recommendations. Yes, I'm very much aware that you can find much more concrete, simple recommendations elsewhere on the internet, but be careful what you get. Thank you so much for your interest.